Good morning, my fellow Canadians. Before I get into this, I'd like to give you a little personal background. I started my working life at 17. I finished my working life in 2012. So you're talking 45 years, do the math. And this was work. Initially as unskilled labor, farm work, factory work. Got into the military. I did a 5-year hitch with them. When I got out, I lucked into the carpentry trade. I apprenticed as a carpenter. I worked as a carpenter, then as a cabinet maker. And when medical issues put me out of the trade, I worked in sales, selling building materials, which I knew. So 45 years of working. I am 100% supportive of the working man. Anybody who works for a living contributes to this country. Anybody who earns their daily bread with these has my respect. So, on to unions. Now, when I was apprenticing and we had union meetings, and I looked at the administrative staff, our superiors, the union heads, the bosses who would be there talking to us about the goals and future of the trade. What struck me is almost to a man, they were all from the UK. And products of the British labor movement, which was almost soft socialist in nature. Our opposition to the government, some of their demands, to me, came uncomfortably close to socialism or communism. Now, I'm at the Pegida rally. I support Pegida. Anybody go back to my post, you'll see why, and you'll understand my reasoning, or look at the Pegida website. Standing with Antifa was OPSU, Union, and I think there was another union, I can't recall which one, had their banners flying as well. Though I don't know, I can't recall if it was CUPE or not. But what got me was you treasonous sons of bitches standing with people supporting the Liberal or the NDP government, both of whom have been the worst governments in Canadian history. The current Liberal government in Canadian history has been the greatest enemy of the working person. No other government in Canadian history has taxed us to the extent that the Liberals and the NDP have. No other government in Canadian history has left less money in the pockets of the working person than the Liberals. Oh, they talk about middle class and they fudge their numbers and lie. But at the end of the day, when you look at your paycheck and you see how much has gone in tax and you see what you have to pay for gasoline, for heating, for utilities, for heating, for everything, groceries, the basics of life that you need, and you see your tax rate under the Liberals. And tell me how, in what world, the Liberal rhetoric about supporting the middle class has any contact with reality. I'm just like, unions stand with them. Doug Ford is lambasted by the unions here because Kathleen Wynne never said no. Didn't matter what the demands were, she never said no. She bought their votes. And so the unions, instead of standing up for Canada and Canadian values, are standing up for the Liberals, which are demonstrably un-Canadian and the anathema to Canadian values. So I look at that and I'm going to mention pensions. I won't say what I get, but let me put it this way. If I was single, I couldn't afford to live where I'm living. I got a pension increase. Ooh, $28 a year, a month rather, pardon me. Guess what? That pension increase just covered my rental increase. So where am I ahead? So after 45 years of working, when have seniors or pensionable people had a decent increase? Oh, the Liberals have made damn sure. Trudeau, who is independently wealthy, he raised his salary, and the MPs have raised their salaries. They all voted themselves nice, healthy raises. Where's that money come from? Let me think. The working man, and woman. That's where that money comes from. Now, the Liberals give $2 billion, $2 billion from the pension fund to freaking Mumbai. Isn't that nice? $2 billion of your hard-earned money goes to India from the pension fund. Out of your pension fund, were you asked if you thought this was a wise expenditure of money? Was a justification given that would be palatable to the Canadian working person? I bet you not. When you build, working people by their nature are logical. There is a process. There is a series of steps you have to follow to achieve a viable result or a good result, right? And I'll use the analogy of building a house. Once you have your plot of land chosen, you have to make a foundation. The foundation must be waterproof, must be square, must be plumb, must be true, because everything rests on that foundation. Once you have the foundation, you can start building the rest of your structure. And you will build from the ground up. There is a process, a logical process. Step 1, step 2, step 3, etc., etc. Theorists and those who wish to opine and, ooh, let's try this. Ooh, let's try that. There are some things you cannot mess with. There are a series of steps you cannot mess with. You cannot theorize, you cannot postulate, you cannot alter the process, because the process is tried, true, tested, and it works. When you look at the Liberals, they're trying all kinds of asinine, half-baked, moronic social theories instead of staying with what works, what truly benefits Canada and Canadians. Ooh, let's try this. Ooh, let's try that. But who pays for it? All those theories? It never hurts them. It never impacts them. It's the working person, the working people of this country who have to pay the cost of their failed theories. I watched the Liberals slam the Conservatives. This kills me. Ontario, as a specific, we are paying almost $1 billion per month in interest. Now, that's not principal. That doesn't even touch the principal. After 16 years of Liberal mismanagement, we are paying almost $1 billion per month in interest payments. $1 billion because of 16 years of Liberal stupidity. And what are the unions doing? We want this. We want that. The money isn't there. Don't slam Doug Ford because he's not giving you this and giving you that. Don't slam Doug Ford because he's trying to create something resembling fiscal responsibility. You sucked off the public tit for years and years and years, and now you want to keep doing it. Years back, my sister worked for the Postal Union. During one of the recessions, there was a meeting about the upcoming contract and whether they should strike. And a lady stood up at the meeting and said, look, for what we do, she says, my husband's a hardworking man. He's a laborer. She says, I make almost as much as he does. For what we do, we are well paid for what we do. Now, granted, there's no way they can moonlight or get extra income unless they have a secondary job of some sort. She says, for what we do, we are well paid. Why don't we just ask the government to keep the current contract and just extend it, renew it, the current contract, everything status quo, nothing clawed back, nothing added. She was roundly booed, castigated, belittled by the union administrator. She was actually physically assaulted one night coming home from work or heading out to her vehicle. Her vehicle was vandalized. Militant unionism versus common sense. And there was a lady who actually spoke up factually, realistically, and proposed something that I think would have shown um, civic responsibility. And look what happened. Who pushed that agenda? The unions. When the unions get into bed with NDP or Liberals, anybody who remembers Ontario remembers the days of social conscience under Booby Ray. I've mentioned this in the past. 1 day a month off with no pay. Now, maybe at your level, losing a day's pay doesn't hurt you in the government. You were well compensated. But that hurt my bottom line. 1 day a month, losing a day's pay a month. Oh yeah, I got a day off. Big whoop. I worked for the money. I needed the money. This is the NDP screwing the working man again. The Liberals, there is a total disconnect between what they say and what they do. The Liberals under Trudeau purport to be friends of the working man, of the middle class. I love that, middle class. They have no concept what middle class is. So on one hand, they're saying, we support the middle class and we're going to make life better for the middle class. And then they keep raising your taxes and giving away your pension money and giving away money out of government coffers. Government coffers, that's your money. Your money. Government does not generate revenue. All the revenue they get comes out of your pocket. And without any consultation, they are taking your money. What, 122 million to Iraq to help build their infrastructure? What about Canadian infrastructure? Like I said, 2 billion to Mumbai out of the pension fund? For what? And unions are still anti-conservative. Jerry Garcia, or Jerry Diaz, whatever his name is, from Unifor. He's right in the Liberals' pocket. How can any working man or anybody who purports to be a union member or a working person support the Liberals is totally beyond me when they are taxing you more and more and more and wasting your money. Your money. Giving themselves nice raises. Oh, there's no problem there. Out of your money. So I have no idea of the mindset of these people. Say, vote Liberal, anybody but Conservative. Anybody remember that? ABC, anybody but Conservative. But let's take a look at Harper. Harper inherited $600 billion deficit from the Liberals. He cut that deficit in half without raising my taxes. I actually had more money in my pocket at the end of the day under the Harper government than I did under the Liberal governments. And he did it without raising our taxes. The words you want there are sound fiscal management. Harper is held up internationally and is as an example of sound fiscal management. And I know as sure as there's a God in heaven, there's a lot of people out there saying, why the hell did I ever vote Liberal? And I know that. I've been hearing this too. People voted Liberal in the last election, got seduced by the rhetoric and bought into the lies and are, well, I would say the new phrase should be anybody but Liberal, ABL. So I don't know what happened to the unions, how they became to ally themselves with Antifa, stand with Antifa against common sense and Canadian values. Unions have lost their way. Not all of them, probably, but the ones I did see. OPSEU? I don't know, folks. I don't have a university education. I don't have a degree. I don't have a pile of letters after my name. But I have got loads of common sense. And this is all I'm asking for. Common sense. Forget the rhetoric. Forget the theories. Forget the BS that they're spewing out. Look at the facts. Look at your paycheck. Look at your taxes. Look at your heating bill. Look at your gasoline costs. Look at your grocery costs. Under the Liberals in Ontario and under the Liberals federally, we are getting absolutely screwed. Every Canadian is being impacted by their fiscal irresponsibility, their moronic theoretical stupidity. Every Canadian is impacted by this. You wish to continue another 4 years passing this on to your children and their children? Vote Liberal. You're too stupid to do anything else. As harsh as that may sound, that's my take on it. I'm not asking for anybody to vote Conservative. I'm voting Conservative. I don't see another option, quite frankly. But if you truly love this country as much as I do, I don't see an alternative. I really do not see an alternative. If you look at British Columbia under the NDP government and how screwed they are under those social reengineering morons. My sister lives in BC, and I just watch the news and I listen to what she tells me, and I'm just like, my God. Okay, that's Snowflake Villa out there anyways. But they got the government they deserved, voting them in. I'd love to see Canada back on track. I would love to see a better future. I'd love to get a serious hike up in my pension. I think after 45 years of hard work, I deserve it. How long does an MP sit to get that beautiful gold-plated pension, or politicians? With what you make, 1 week of my old job working with me, and they'd have been crying for their mamas when they find out what real work is. So my fellow Canadians, if you want to come out ahead of the game, who else can you vote for? Here's Liberal and NDP mathematics. Anybody here in Ontario recalls Doug Ford being slammed by the NDP and slammed, well, the Liberals are pretty well a non-entity, but slammed by Andrea Horsbath and the NDP for not raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour. That put a great burden on manufacturers, $15 an hour. Businesses, there are businesses where the boss, by the time they pay all the business taxes and all the paperwork that the Liberal government gives small business people, the boss was taking home less money than her employees because she was forced to pay this minimum wage. Ford says, well, wait a minute. Why don't we encourage small business by giving them tax breaks? So think about this. You make less money, less income, but it's offset by the fact that you don't pay as heavy a tax break. I found this is interesting for those of you who take public transit. Trudeau, the working man's buddy, right, used to get a tax break for metro passes or bus passes, transit fees. You presented your receipts and you got a tax break. Trudeau cut that out. Who takes public transit the most? Working people. So Trudeau, one hand, well, the Liberals on one hand are saying, oh, we support the working poor. We support the working man, but we're going to claw back your tax break for taking public transit. Which, of course, more people take public transit, less traffic on the roads. I'm not going to go on the benefits of that. So what did Doug Ford do? Screw you. We're going to give Ontarians a tax break. for using public transit. So those of you who use public transit in Ontario, you might not be aware of this. There is an Ontario tax credit for using public transit. Tell me how bad Doug Ford has been for this province, you idiots. If you truly love this country, pull your head out of your butt. Look at the facts, not the rhetoric. Look at the facts. Look at what is being done, not what is being said. Look at that and then decide where you're going to cast your ballot this October. If you truly love this country, you'll join me in voting in Andrew Scheer. That's my morning rant. Thank you. Have a good day all.